Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Simone here, and today we're going to be filming my February wrap up. So you may remember, I'll link down below my January wrap up where I read quite a few books. I read 13 books, so it was good in terms of quantity, but the quality of the books I was reading was really not great. February was completely the opposite, so I read 7 books, so for me that's not a very big amount of books, but I had a really good books in terms of the number of good high ratings. So I don't know how I feel about the beginning of this year so far. To be honest, March has not been much better, so I feel like I'm in a bit of a reading slump, like not really a slump, but kind of like a slow, like I feel like I'm burning through books really slowly. But it's fine, and yeah, we're gonna just keep going and see how we go. But yeah, like I said, we only have 7 books to talk about today. So first of all, I'm going to do some stats for you. So I read 7 books in the month of February, of which I read 2,962 pages. My average rating was a 4.14, so a quite high rating, which I was very pleased with. I read 3 contemporary, 1 fantasy, 1 mystery, 1 non-fiction, and 1 sci-fi. So my genres were quite diverse, I think, this time in terms of the genres I normally read. I read 4 physical books, 2 ebooks, and 1 audiobook. I read 5 adult books and 2 YA books. So yeah, all over, I think it was a pretty good reading month in terms of, like I said, the quantity and the variation of the books I was reading. But yeah, let's get into the books that I did read. So right at the very beginning of February, I was still participating in the 1,000 Pages readathon hosted by the wonderful Victoria from What Victoria Read. And the book that I had been reading in the second week of that readathon was The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter. This is now my 3rd Karen Slaughter book. The first one I gave a 5-star, which was Pretty Girls. I DNF'd pieces of her last month and gave that, obviously I DNF'd it, and then I gave this one a 5-star. This was such a wonderful book and I absolutely loved it. I was also recommended this in my booktubers recommend my TBR video by the lovely Victoria, so a massive thank you to Victoria because this one was definitely a good shout. Like I said, this is my 3rd Karen Slaughter and I absolutely loved it. This was back to Pretty Girl standard for me. It was what I loved about Karen Slaughter. This follows 2 girls named Charlotte and Samantha Quinn. They are sisters, and 28 years ago from the very start of this book there was a pretty horrendous attack on their home. Their father Rusty is a lawyer and has been a lawyer for some pretty seedy defendants, and it was always assumed that this attack was in retaliation to that, but basically the attack left their mother dead, and it left both of the girls really struggling, and basically this book follows, it kind of jumps in timelines a bit. It talks about now, so 28 years later, Charlotte is also a lawyer. She has taken this on. She's gone back to her hometown, which is one of my favourite things about books, is the people that go back to their hometown. She has she witnesses, or she's involved at the scene of a shooting in a school, and she then has to figure out what's going to go on, and it kind of goes from there. There are so many twists and turns to this, I wouldn't even be able to spoil you if I wanted to, because honestly, you have to read it to really understand and get into the mindset of the characters and understand where the twists and turns come from. This was so wonderful. I love Karen Slaughter. This is quite gory. It's quite a big book in general, like I think it's 550 pages nearly. And it is quite a gory read, so I would say don't read this if you're kind of a beginner to the genre, but I absolutely loved this book. It just kept me reading. I felt like I just wanted to keep going and find out what was happening. This literally, I will link down below my second vlog for the second week of the 1,000 Pages readathon, because I really talked about this a lot more because I was reading it through that week, and yeah. This was so good. I was totally invested, and now I really just want to read more Karen Slaughter, and I hope that I will do that at some point this year. The second book I read was Yellow Memories by Mick West, which was a book on my Kindle. This was a really short book I'd got. I don't even know how I picked it up or why I had it, but it basically follows, it's a 50-page book, a short story I guess, but that follows a cab driver in San Francisco who named Mick West, obviously. I didn't realise before, but I have read another another Mick West book. I read the Escaping the Rabbit Hole Debunking Conspiracy Theories book, which I gave, I think, a 3 or 4 star, which I got a e-arc of from NetGalley last year, I think. And I enjoyed that book. It was really quite long-winded, but I did enjoy it. And I wish I'd not read this one, to be honest. I gave this one a 2 star. It was kind of... I was thinking, I think I mentioned in one of my videos last month that I really like the idea of reading non-fiction about people's jobs and kind of them in their job and the things that happen and whatever, and I thought this might be a fun quick read of a cab driver's life. And although I'd love to read more about cab drivers and kind of their stories, this one I did not enjoy because it talks a lot about drug use, and Mick West openly talks about how he was taking drugs and smoking weed and doing all these things in the cab as he was the driver, and I don't know if that's just like a culture thing, or I don't know, I really just wasn't there for it. I'm not an advocate of drug use at all, and I just found the whole book really just tinted by that. Yeah, I couldn't get past it, and I didn't really see the point of the book. Like I said, it was 50 pages, so it was really short, like quick anecdotal bits, which generally has worked for me in other books. I just think he was trying too hard with it, and I really wasn't a big fan, so unfortunately it was a 2 star. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm the only person that's done a rating of it on Goodreads, so the book is currently at 2 star, and I feel a bit bad for that, but like, I didn't enjoy it, so I guess that has to be where I fell with it. So yeah, anyway, but it was a 2 star, and like I say, it was a quick, I think I read it in like half an hour, so it didn't take me long at all. The third book that I read in the month of February was another 5-star read. This is How Hard Can Love Be by Holly Bourne. This is the second book in the Spinster Club series. I also managed to finish this one and then immediately, like half an hour after I finished it, got sent the third one by Victoria as well. Victoria's getting a lot of shout outs in this video, and I'm not upset about it at all. This one I buddy read with the lovely Alex from Ernest Alex Reads, who I adore, and I think you should all go and check out her channel because she's so wonderful. She's just really like, I felt like we talked about this and there was so much that I learned from her and so many things that we talked about, and I just had a really great time buddy reading with her. So yeah, I would highly recommend, if she's buddy reading, you definitely need to go over there and join in with her, because loved this. This follows a girl, so the Spinster Club trilogy in itself starts with Am I Normal Yet, which is the first book, and that is about, and it follows 3 best friends who each have their own issues. In the first book, the story is about, so each one of the 3 books in the trilogy is about one of the friends, or that's the main kind of part of it. So the first one follows Evie, who has OCD, and it was really well written. I loved that book. And it also talks about the 3 girls who have a feminist club called the Spinster Club, and they are reclaiming the word spinster, and it's just really fun. And then this one talks about, so this one follows Amber, whose mum left the family a few years before and moved to America. They live is set in the UK, and she goes to America in this book to stay at a summer camp that her mum essentially is running with her new partner. And yeah, I really enjoyed just reading it, and just, I don't know, there was something about it. We read 50 pages a day, and it was just so interesting, and I just really loved the representation of this. This felt like there was a lot of like anxiety stuff in there, and I don't know, I found it really fun. I loved the main characters in this. I loved the friendships that she had. I loved the feminist talk in this. There was a lot of like talk about how you can be a feminist and still want to be in love, and you can do all these, like, I loved it. I thought it was so wonderfully done. And also the main love interest, Kyle, is like, he's amazing, and I love him. And I'm really looking forward to reading book 3, which I now own. And then Holly Bourne can do no wrong in my eyes. I think she's wonderful, and I'm really excited about this book. The next book I read, I was really nervous about reading because I was recommended this by the lovely Charlie from the channel Charlie Brook. Charlie doesn't upload anymore, but I will link her channel down below because it is 100% worthwhile going and looking at her old videos because she's amazing. She recommended me this particular book, and actually when I went to go see her and her sister Emily from Novell Novels last July, she actually wrote inside my copy of this book because I bought this when we were shopping at that point. This is Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton, and this is basically Charlie's favourite book of last year. And I was like, I hope I really like it. I was really worried I wasn't. And I started reading this and I was like, I don't think I like this. I've actually listened to this on audiobook, and the first sort of like 50 pages, I was a bit like, it's a bit strange, and I don't really know how I feel about it. And I was thinking this is going to end badly because I'm going to have to try and explain to Charlie that I don't really like it. And then I carried on reading, and now this is I don't know how many pages, nearly 500 pages book, and I listened to this audiobook, and I really enjoyed this. I gave it a 4-star. It's such a well-written book. It has a lot of lyrical writing, and it's definitely not my usual style of writing, but I think that because I was trying to kind of look past that almost, I then enjoyed the writing as well. This is a book set in Brisbane in 1983. It's an Australian author. Trent Dalton is Australian. It follows, it's kind of a hard one to explain. It says, it basically follows a family, it's kind of a strange family setup. So you have, I'm just going to read the inside because I want to make sure I definitely get it right. So it says, a lost father, a mute brother, a mum in jail, a heroin dealer for a stepfather, and a notorious criminal for a babysitter. It also has a drug dealer in this named Titus Brosh, and it's basically about crime, it's about drugs, it's about relationships between brothers, the brotherhood in this. Like, August is the mute brother and Eli is the main character, and honestly the two of them together, I love them so much. It's so clever as well. So throughout the book there is a phrase that is used. In fact, you can see it, it's written right there. It says, your end is a dead blue wren, and throughout the book it doesn't really make any sense, and then suddenly it all makes sense. And I honestly, and also this is kind of creepy as well, like it doesn't really feel like you're going to get that much of the crime side, if that makes sense. Like, it talks about obviously people in prison and stuff like that, but then you get to sort of like this far through, like you've got like maybe 100 pages left, and suddenly everything kicks off, and it's like, oh my god, I didn't expect that. I didn't anticipate anything that was happening in this. I could not have even made it up if I tried. It's the most beautiful cover of a book, and I just absolutely adored this. The audiobook is great as well. It's an Australian audio narrator, and I just thought this was wonderful. Honestly, if you haven't, like, the main character in this, Slim, I think is the one of the main characters, and I love Slim as a character. Eli, Caitlin, oh, everybody. August is just fantastic. Like, I just think this book is one of those books that you can really gush over because it's just so good. And I did give it a 4-star in the end, not a 5, only because, like I said, sometimes I was like, the first bit I was sort of a bit lost and I didn't really know where I was going, but once I hit the main story and got into it, wow, was this book good. I would 100% recommend that you pick this up if you haven't already. It's just, it will stay with me for a long time to come. The next book I read was one that took me some time because it is a big book. It is, in fact, how big are you? 650 pages, so it did take me some time, but you know what, I was really glad that I did read this. This is Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Rees Brennan, Maureen Johnson and Robin Wasserman. This is the short story collection that takes place, it's after the Mortal Instrument series. There probably are spoilers in here for other books in the Cassandra Clare Shadowhunter world, but I kind of didn't mind anyway. This basically, although it's 10 short stories, and you can see the bits where it's like together here, this is essentially Simon, who is one of the main characters in the Mortal Instrument series. This follows Simon's foray into becoming a Shadowhunter and him in the Shadowhunter Academy and kind of what happens there. Although this says it's short stories, the stories follow each other, so it almost felt like reading just a big book, like, and I loved that. I think that that was really interesting, because although you could technically read each story separately, it made sense as a whole story. So I kind of enjoyed the fact that I almost felt like I was just reading it in 10 chunks instead of reading it, you know, having to read it as short stories, if that makes sense. I really, really enjoyed this. I've never been a big Simon fan in the Mortal Instrument series itself. I don't really know why. I think he was a great, like, he was a fun character, but he was never one of my favourites. I always was a bit like, not sure how I feel about him. But he's now one of my favourite characters, like from this book onwards, if that makes sense. There's lots of things that happen in this from other main characters that I'm really looking forward to, like that really made me feel good about, and I was excited to find old characters that I'd seen before and wondered about them. I also really love the fact that it introduces some of the characters that are in the Infernal Devices series, which now I can't wait to read. I do own the first one and I really want to read them now. I just absolutely love this. Yeah, I would highly recommend, if you enjoy Cassandra Clare's other books, that you read this one, because I really loved it. And although it's a big book, it was 100% worth the read, and I gave it a 4-star. Then the penultimate book I read in the month of February was a buddy read with the lovely Emily from Novell Novels. We buddy read Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I read Celeste Ng's other book in January, and I gave it, I think, a 4-star. That one was Everything I Never Told You, which I loved. This one I loved even more. This was a definite 5-star read for me. This basically follows, again, this is a difficult one to explain, and I think maybe this is why it's taken me so long to read some of these books, is because I read some quite like obscure books this month, and books that were quite different than my normal taste. This follows a progressive suburb called Shaker Heights, which is basically a town where they have rules for everything, and it's very kind of like regulated. Like there are certain colours that you can paint your house, and you know, there are just rules about living there, and everyone kind of goes along with it, including one of the main characters who is Eleanor Richardson. Eleanor is a character who is very steadfast in the fact that she lives in this area. She's, you know, one of the main people that live there. Everybody knows everybody, and she has 4 children. 4 children? Yeah. She has 4 children. She knows where all of them are at all times. Like, they're very regulated. And then she decides to rent out a house to Mia Warren. Now, Mia is an artist. She's a single mother to Pearl, who is another one of the main characters, and it kind of is about what happens when one of Eleanor's friends adopts a Chinese American baby, and Mia and Eleanor are on the opposite sides of that fight. So it's just, I can't even explain to you how good this book is. It was so wonderfully written. There were so many things that started coming up that just made sense. It talks a lot about parental rights and who has the right of a baby. Is it the biological parent? Is it the adopted parent? And that kind of thing. It talks a lot about that. It talks a lot about a lot of things to do with that. There are definitely trigger warnings for abortion in this one, and for violence, I would say, but this is just so good. I loved it. I honestly, if I'd not been buddy reading this, and I'm really glad I did buddy read this, because I think I would have missed a lot of it otherwise. I probably would have just sat down and read the whole thing in one go, because this was just so gripping, and I love Celeste Ng's writing. I've loved both books I've read of hers now, so I would highly recommend her, and I definitely want to read more from her in the future. And then the final book that I read in the month of February was my ebook for the month. This was Followers by Megan Angelo. I was sent this by the publisher, so a massive thank you to them for sending that to me on NetGalley. Followers is a really difficult one to explain. Again, this kind of reminded me of an episode of Black Mirror. It's a really interesting book that talks a lot about social media, the internet, and technology, so it really has lots of reminiscences of Black Mirror to me. I really enjoyed that side of it. It follows 2 timelines. The first is of Orla, who works as a blogger for a women's magazine called Ladyish, and she helps her friend and roommate Floss become famous, and she kind of like manipulates how she just like writes about her on this blog and essentially makes her famous. The second timeline is about 30 or 40 years later, and it follows a girl named Marlowe who's living in the community. A community is a place where you are constantly sharing online to millions of followers, and basically it's a kind of like real world community, I guess, where literally you get, I think they get like an hour a day privacy between 3 and 4 a.m. This network that she has to kind of like work for gives her story arc, so she might get like, this month you're going to get married, or this season you're going to get divorced, or this season you're going to have a baby, and things like that. And it's just very kind of like constant, there's always something happening. The book, I would say, I can't really sum it up in one, it's really hard, you have to read it, it's just such a great book to immerse yourself into. I think my favourite character was probably Orla, but I would say that also the world building in it is just so wonderfully brilliant, and you just get wrapped up in it and you feel like you just need to keep reading. And yeah, it's just a great book. I didn't really love the ending, I will say, that's the only thing. I felt it was a bit kind of like odd to me. This is definitely a sci-fi book, which is not something I generally read, but I really think that you'll enjoy it if you were to read it. Again, thank you to the publishers for sending me this. I was really surprised by it, and yeah, I highly recommend. And I would definitely, I think this is a debut novel for Megan Angelo, so I would definitely read more from her in the future. So there you are, guys, that is the 7 books that I read in the month of February. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Let me know how you read in February. Did it go well for you? Did it not? And what do you think you're going to be reading in the future? And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.